What's better than buying back issues? Maybe it's getting some of those comics signed by some of your favorite comic book creators. Stay tuned as I showcase some of my favorite comics that I've gotten signed over the years. Welcome back, comic book fans. This is Rusty again with Collector Auctions, and thank you for joining me today. This is the fifth in a series of episodes where I am spotlighting some of my favorite signed comics. These are comics that I have gotten signed over the last 30 to 40 years. They are some of my favorites in my collection, and what I do on this channel is I bring those out and I spotlight the books. They're great comics to have, but they're even better because I've gotten to meet some of the fantastic creators along the way. In some cases, I didn't actually get to meet them, and I'll explain that as I have done in some of the previous episodes as well. But before we begin, definitely hit that like button, click the subscribe, and definitely click that notification bell. That way, you guys won't miss out on any of my episodes that I put out each and every week, Mondays and Fridays at 10 a.m. All right, guys, stay tuned. Here come the comics. All right, everybody. So the first book today is a fan favorite because it is the first part of a multi-part story that was in Batman. And this is a very popular storyline, and it is Batman number 509. It is the first issue, the first part of Night's End. Like I said, a very popular storyline back in the day. Now, I was collecting this comic, but I can't say that I was really into it. So this is a book that I probably would have never gotten signed myself, but I didn't buy this comic book. This comic right here was bought by my mother back in the day when she was a big fan of watching QVC. And back then they did a lot of comic book related shows and a lot of signed memorabilia that have certificate of authenticity with every one of these books. Not that they're worth the paper they're printed on, to be honest with you. But she bought this, and it had two signatures on there, two people I have never gotten to meet, basically the writer and the inker on the book. And I'll show it to you. I'll close in. You can see right there. This book came with this right here. It was signed by Doug Minch. And Doug Minch is somebody that I would love to meet because I've got some Batman Legends of the Dark Knight books that he did with Paul Gulacy that I would love to get signed. And then the inker on the book is right there. Now, this person has already passed away. I don't know when at this point, but this is Dick Giordano, longtime DC exec as well as inker. Inked a lot of the classic stories, including some of the Crisis on Infinite Earths. But I've had these in my collection for years, just sitting there. It's still in the original Mylite bag. It's still in a really great condition, and it's just sat there for years. And I realized, what am I doing with this? I got into this whole series has been about, for the most part, has been about adding multiple signatures to books. And why would I just save this? It doesn't have any real value just keeping it the way it is. So I decided to take this book, like I've done others from QVC that my mother has bought me, and added additional signatures. So who else have I added to this? Well, right down below is John Beatty, who also inked this. Now, Giordano probably was just the executive on this. I don't know if he did the inks on the interior and John Beatty did the cover inks. It's hard to tell. I'd have to go back and research the whole thing, but I know both of them worked on the book. And then down at the bottom, the artist on this, the penciler, was Mike Manley. And I've got his signature down here. See it right there. Who do I need on this right here? It's Kelly Jones. And I know I took this with me back, I want to say 2019 Heroes Con. It was the first time I'd been back to Heroes Con in probably 30 years. And I went back mostly because Bill Sienkiewicz was there. But Kelly Yates was supposed to be there. I'm sorry, Kelly Yates, excuse me. Kelly Jones was supposed to be there. And he ended up being a no-show, and I didn't get this signed by him. So this is a book, if I ever see Kelly Jones show up at a convention, at either of the two conventions I usually go to, this is a book that will go with me, and I will add that signature to that. You asked me, is this a candidate for possible getting CBCS? Send us in. Oh my God, I just went, Thanks, Lisa. here I go again talking about, you shouldn't do that. It's a improper language technique. It's a crutch. Don't do that. Anyway, I will take this to the convention and get Kelly Jones at some point. I hope. I hope. At that point, this book may end up going to CBCS and to be all authenticated and then encapsulated at some point. After that, I don't think there's anybody really left to add to this book. But it's a good book, and it really exemplifies the kind of collection that I have. I do have bigger books, much bigger books than this that I've gotten signed over the years. But the joy I've gotten out of the hobby is by adding extra signatures to these books over the years. It's been a lot of fun, and I continue to do that to this day. All right, so the next book on the list is a favorite of mine. I had gotten this book signed by the artist, but I had never gotten, at this point, I had never gotten to meet the writer on this book, and it is a classic right here. This is a great book. It is Batman 404. It is the first issue of the Batman Year One by Frank Miller and Dave Mazzucchelli. Now, years ago, and I cannot even tell you what year it was at this point, I got Dave Mazzucchelli to sign this. So let's start with him right here, because that's what I started with. I had never had a chance to meet Frank Miller at this point, but I had a chance to get Dave Mazzucchelli. Now, his autograph is right down, right there. And if you look real close, let's go in a little closer, you can also see, and I had forgotten this too, I got Denny O'Neil years ago to sign this too. But what it came down to is I had never gotten the chance to get Frank Miller, and never knew if I was ever going to get to, but I know that I wanted to get this book signed by Mazzucchelli. I actually had him signed at the same time. I've got all 3 or 4 issues of Batman Year One signed. And I also got him to sign I think all of the Daredevil Born Again series that he also did with Frank Miller as well. And I knew hopefully at some point in the future, I was going to meet Frank Miller. Well, here it comes, Baltimore Comic-Con a few years ago. I had a chance to go meet him, but unfortunately, I'd already had plans to be out of town. I was going to be out in Phoenix, Arizona, and my wonderful wife actually stepped in my place and went to the con and took this book amongst other books to get signed. But she ended up getting Frank Miller on this comic right here. And as you can see, it is right there on the cover. You can tell there's a big time difference between getting things signed. Now, I didn't want to make it hard for her, or else I probably would have gotten his signature on the inside of this particular copy, but I didn't want to make it any more difficult for her than it was already going to be. And I ended up giving her this book along with a few other things, and he ended up signing them, and including some Dark Knight stuff and some things for Klaus Janson. She did great that con. Got autographs from Bart Sears and from Jim Steranko and Stan Sakai and everything. But in this video, we're spotlighting this book right here, and I was so happy to get this. That it's a book that, here's one that will never get graded because of those interior signatures, and I'm glad I got a chance to open it up. I completely forgot that I had Denny O'Neil in there as well. He was the editor at DC at the time. In fact, he did the editing on Dark Knight Returns as well. So just a great book to have on the PC. Now, I don't have it sitting here, but one of my goals from 2023 was to get all 4 issues as a 9.8 of Batman Year One in my PC. And I managed to do that, and my copy of this one right here is actually the copy that I took with me to Baltimore Comic-Con a year ago, actually in 2022, when Frank Miller made a return visit to the Baltimore Comic-Con. And that year, I actually got a chance to go meet him in person. I took this comic, or that, not this one, but the copy I had, and I ended up getting him to sign that one in person, and I submitted it right on the spot to a company that was representing CGC, and I was able to get a 9.8 on that. So I've got a 9.8 CGC 9.8 signed copy of Batman Year One. It, of course, only has Frank Miller. If Dave Mazzucchelli ever pops up into any kind of event, I will definitely take that book along and have it cracked open to add his signature to one of his preeminent books that he's ever worked on. So nice piece just for the collection. Grading wise, as I said, I'll never send this into CGC and I'll never send it into CBCS because of that interior signature. So this is one that will stay raw on my PC. All right, the next book here, not a big book at all, but what a great series. And I would highly recommend, if you've never gone back and read probably the first 25 issues of this series, I can't underestimate, or I can't over exaggerate how good the series was without actually having big name characters in it, and the storylines were really good. This was good comic book telling right here, good storytelling, and this is part of that Jeff Johns Hawkman run that he did with Rags Morales. And this is issue number 15. And you might wonder, well, why are you doing issue number 15? There's all issue number 1. There was other issues in this as well. Well, I'll get to the reason why. But as I said, I would highly recommend going back and reading this series. This came out in, I guess the series probably ran from 02 to 03 to 04. To be honest with you, I don't know when the series ended. I think Howard Chaykin took over the series, and I think it changed into a Hawk Girl series with Howard Chaykin. I'm not really sure. But I was definitely, Jeff Johns, for me, carried on that tradition that Roy Thomas did back in the 70s and 80s, taking a lot of these older characters, like Roy Thomas took those Golden Age characters for All-Star Squadron and told some really good stories, and knowing the history of the characters. Well, Jeff Johns kind of did the same thing a little bit in this series right here, and this issue in particular, because what you do is it does focus on the new Hawkman, but it also focuses on the new Hawk Girl, and it brings back the former Hawkwoman from, I guess she was called Hawkwoman, or was it Hawk Girl? I'm not sure. From the 60s Silver Age characters. You've got, what is her name? I can't remember her name. I had it a minute ago, but that character comes back in this, and it's actually it's a throwback to some of those Jack Herbert stories from the 60s. I will tell you that. But why is this book right here one of my favorites that I've gotten signed? Now, I've got plenty of these Hawkman books signed, as I said, including some that actually have Mike Bair, who is the inker on most of this series. But I don't know why I don't have him on this one, because this one right here is my favorite issue. And let me show you why. It comes down to this page right here. Not the splash page, but this page right there. And you're going, well, what's so special about that page? Well, let me put the book back in here real quick. Well, just like I have spotlighted in other episodes during this series of videos, I own the original artwork from Rags Morales, and what did I say? Oh my God, I'm completely blanking. What did I just say? Mike Bair. Is that his name? Oh my God, I literally just said it. Having a brain fart here. But Rags Morales artwork. And what I did was, this is another page I picked up from the same company that I had picked up some of those wanted pages from a previous episode. And they had a lot of pages from this that were, some of them were more expensive and some of them were less expensive. This was a little bit less expensive, but one of the things I really liked was the way they drew Hawkman and Hawkwoman's wings in here. I think the detail was fantastic. And I tried to get a page that wasn't too outrageously priced, that had some good detail on the wings, or at least on the close-ups of their hawk mask and everything. So, and as you can see down at the bottom, I'd gotten Rags to sign this years ago at Baltimore Comic-Con, and just last year in 2023, Jeff Johns made a return to the Baltimore Comic-Con, and I got him to sign the original artwork as well. It really pops with that gold pen on that black border right there. That is really spectacular. You guys will have to let me know what you think about getting original artwork signed like this. Does it deface the artwork or does it add to it? I wouldn't have gotten signed if I didn't think it added to the artwork. So this right here is really special to me because, as I said, that's why this book is special, is because of this page right there. That on the side, I'll have to put that back in the portfolio, make sure it's safe and sound and everything. All right, so that brings us to the last two books on today's episode of some of my favorite signed comics. And I'm doing both of these comics together because to me they are a bookend. They are bookends. And this is it right here. It is issue number 7 of Usagi Jimbo, and then issue number 60 of Usagi. And you can see they are bookends. Let me see if I can set them up here without everything falling over. I'm going to overlap just a little bit. So, and you kind of wonder, you may be asking, what's so special about these? Well, to me, this is my absolutely favorite Usagi Jimbo story. It started in issue 7 with the withered field where Usagi meets a fellow Ronin, a traveler, a former samurai, and who is very devoted to the samurai way. And I won't get into the names of everything with the Japanese. You can read the book and you can learn about a lot about the names of what they call their honor system and things like that. I won't get into that. But in this story, Usagi learns, and I'm talking about issue 7 here. Usagi learns about the history of this character. Whoops, let's do that again. Of this character here that he's facing. And I'm going to probably butcher the name. It's Nakamura or Mura. And in his history, he had been defeated by somebody and a student who had his own style of fighting, and it brought great dishonor to him. And in the story, Usagi and him are fighting bandits or something like that, and he notices that Usagi's style of fighting is very similar to that opponent from many years ago. And as it turns out, he finds out that Usagi's sensei is the person that defeated him that many years ago. And at that point, he literally challenges Usagi to a duel. Usagi doesn't want to do it. So he's reluctant, and that probably leads to his defeat. Now, he didn't get killed. Nakamura ended up saving his life, or didn't kill him, but he basically said this: you need to go back to your sensei, and you need to, basically, I'm issuing a challenge. And somewhere future down the line, we were going to have this duel. Well, here we go. And this was 1996 when this book right here came out. All from Dark Horse Comics, by the way. So 2000, when was this? Hang on. See if I can figure it out. I had it written down. I think it's 2003, but at this point, I can't remember exactly. I've got it written down on my notes that I have, but I can't see it exactly there. Well, here we go. All these years later, now finally, well, it's years of our life, but probably in storybook time, it's probably only a few months. We've got the duel at, I'm going to try to pronounce this. Oh my God. I can't even pronounce it. Forget it. I was going to do it. But it is a pretty famous story in the Usagi storyline here. And you finally get the duel between these two. In fact, the issues leading up to this, they join and travel together and they fight bandits together. And that's part of Usagi's real problem with this character right here, is that he has such honor. He said, why are you doing this? You don't need to prove anything. You can do so much good. And he says, he's on the path of the warrior to learn. And part of that is knowing who is the best. And honor dictates that they settle this duel. And you've got this battle. And in the end, you find out who ends up winning that day. And just what a perfect bookend to the other issue right there. And so here we go. A few years ago, I'm not sure which con, it probably was 2019 in Baltimore. I'm sorry, in Charlotte at Heroes Con. It could be there, it could have been in one of the Baltimore shows. I got Stan Sakai to sign both of these, and not only did he sign both of them, but he did one of his signature remarks right there with Usagi. And my guess is I did these exactly at the same time. And most of the time, when you do multiple books with Stan back before every autograph was being charged for, he seemed to me like he would do one remark on one book and then would just sign the others. But in this case, he did a remark on both, so it definitely continued that mirrored image on both sides. And for that alone, I really appreciate. I've really Stan Sky. I'm such a big fan. My wife's a big fan of him. She's gotten to meet him before. In fact, I'd mentioned him before at the Baltimore Comic Con where Frank Miller was, and my wife went, and I talked about that earlier with the Batman issue. That was one of those years that she got to meet him without me there, and got to meet him in person and got to have some experience with some of the books that I got signed with him and everything. So both my wife and I really like Stan, and just a big fan of Usagi Jimbo. This is my favorite Usagi Jimbo story. I will read it, pull this out every now and then to read. I don't think I'll ever get this graded or anything, but I love having this in my PC. So those are two of my favorite Usagi books. You guys will have to let me know, what do you think about the books today? What do you think about these Usagi Jimbos? Are you a fan? Have you read these books? Have you read any of these books? You guys let me know by leaving me a comment in the comment section below. And if you're ever interested in anything I show off on my channel, definitely contact me, email me at collectorauctions@yahoo.com, or DM me on my Instagram account. You can also check out what I currently have for sale in my eBay store or on my Shortbox page by clicking the links in the description of this episode below. So that's it, guys. I'm out of here. I will see you for the next episode. And remember, every comic has a story.